What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we are going to be finishing our series here on predicting the free agents of this 2024 free agent class. We have done the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers, and today we are going to be talking about the tight ends. I know nobody really cares about the tight ends. This tight end free agent class isn't very special, but I got a couple guys that we will talk about today and we will predict their landing spot. So without wasting any more time, why don't we hop right into this video and let's talk about the teams that could be in the market for these top tight ends. Now I got them pulled up on the screen. You guys can see them here. These are some of the teams that I think could be in the free agent tight end market just based off of need, the opportunity that they need at the position, and potential cap space. And when I look at these things, I'm really looking at teams that want to have a combination of both of those things. We want to have cap space to pay some of these top guys. We also want to have the opportunity. So as I'm looking at these teams, I'm trying to eliminate a few of these rosters that don't have both of those things in their favor. And when I look at that, I think these teams should be eliminated. One, we're looking at the Los Angeles Chargers and the Denver Broncos. Both of these teams, as the time of this recording, have negative cap space over on Spotrac. I'm looking at the numbers right now. Broncos sit at minus $19 million in cap. Also, the Chargers are at minus $25 million in cap. So neither of these teams have the money to go sign a top free agent tight end. And then I look at the Las Vegas Raiders. I eliminated them because I don't think that this roster is going to be in the market for a top tight end because they took one of the top tight ends in the 2023 draft in Michael Mayer. So I am going to be eliminating them from this list. And what that's going to leave us with is a market that is actually going to be the Carolina Panthers, the New England Patriots, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Houston Texans, the Washington Commanders, the Los Angeles Rams, the Tennessee Titans, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And one thing to note is out of these teams, the Patriots are going to be losing Hunter Henry to free agency, the Texans, Dalton Schultz to free agency, and the Seahawks, Noah Fant to free agency. So there are some current teams here that are going to be losing their starting tight end, and some of those guys we are going to be talking about today. So without wasting much more time, let's talk about the first free agent and the guy who Spotrac is currently projecting to be the most valuable free agent in the tight end market this year, and we are going to be talking about Dalton Schultz. So you see Dalton Schultz here on the screen, 27 years old. They are projecting an average market value from an average annual salary standpoint of $11.3 million. You look at the market value or the projected contract for Dalton Schultz. Right now, 3 years, $34 million is what they are projecting. You see the current contract. He played on that one-year deal here in Houston, $6 million in 2023. And when we look at some of the comparable players here, they got players like Tyler Higbee, Evan Engram, TJ Hawkinson, Mike Gesicki. These are some of the comparable contracts. I think Dalton Schultz has earned this contract. When you look at what he put together during the 2023 season, this is a guy who played in 15 games. He had 59 receptions for 635 yards and 5 touchdowns. Second best season of his career here for Dalton Schultz. And when I look at where Dalton Schultz should be playing football and where I project him to be playing football in 2024 and beyond, my guess is that he will be playing football with the Houston Texans. Yes, he has earned this extension, and I don't foresee him leaving the Houston Texans. I think what they built together, Dalton Schultz, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, CJ Stroud, I think they like what they got there in Houston this year. And I look at the tight end depth chart there in Houston. Last year, Dalton Schultz accounted for 16% of the receiving target. He finished as the tight end 10 overall in fantasy football. And the current players on the depth chart right now are Brevin Jordan and then a bunch of nobodies. There's really nobody else left there. So they do obviously have a need here. And when it comes to the salary of Dalton Schultz, I don't think it's going to be an issue for the Houston Texans. They currently are 6th overall in the NFL. They have about $70 million available to spend on free agents this season. So why not use it on a guy who produced and showed you some value here with the Houston Texans in 2023. Bring back Dalton Schultz and keep building this Houston Texans offense around CJ Stroud. But now I look at where he could go as a second best option. What if in a random chance the Houston Texans decide not to bring him back? Well, I do think the second best, most likely scenario is going to be the New England Patriots. And again, talking about a team that has a need at the position, we already said it. Hunter Henry is a free agent this year. Also, Mike Gesicki is a free agent this year, and they are going to be moving on from one of those guys, probably at a minimum, maybe even both of them. You look at what they were able to do for the Patriots last year. Both of those guys accounted for about 19% of the target. Now, I don't know if Dalton Schultz makes sense. I think he's an upgrade to what Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki are to that team. But if they were going to make a splash, Dalton Schultz is the best tight end in the market. Maybe he ends up going over there and playing with the Patriots, who currently are 4th overall in cap space. They have $77.9 million that they could spend on anybody to help upgrade this offense, because we know this offense needs a lot of upgrades. Potentially a team that is going to be having a rookie quarterback. There's a lot to figure out here in New England, and Dalton Schultz could potentially end up here in New England if, for some strange reason, the Houston Texans don't re-sign him. Now, moving on to our next free agent tight end, and the second of this video, we are going to be talking about Gerald Everett, the tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers. And Gerald Everett is an interesting type of player right now. 29 years old. He's going to be going into his 30-year-old season. Spotrac is giving him an average annual salary of about $8.6 million. They say a 2-year deal for about $17 million is the most likely scenario for Gerald Everett, coming off of a 2023 season where he played for an average annual salary of $6 million. This would be a slight pay raise for Gerald Everett. I see the comparable players on the screen: Evan Engram, Logan Thomas, Tyler Higbee, CJ Uzoma. These are the type of players that you would compare that contract to. And I look at what Gerald Everett put together in 2023. Not the greatest of seasons for Gerald Everett. 400 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, 19th overall in fantasy points per game with 7.4 fantasy points per game. And I think there is a couple likely scenarios for a guy like Gerald Everett, but the one that makes the most sense for me from a free agent standpoint is going to be the Carolina Panthers. And there are a lot of connections here in Carolina for Gerald Everett. Keep in mind, Gerald Everett was a Seattle Seahawk in 2021, and on that team in 2021, Dave Canales, the new head coach for the Carolina Panthers, also the new offensive coordinator for the Panthers, and the new tight end coach for the Carolina Panthers were all coaches on that Seattle Seahawks staff when Gerald Everett was in Seattle. So there is a lot of relationships that Gerald Everett has with the coaches in Carolina. Whether those are good or not, I am not sure. He did have his second best season of his career when he played in Seattle. So maybe they want to reunite and bring him back to Carolina. And I look at what they have on the depth chart right now. There's pretty much nobody in here who has been very valuable for the Panthers. We know they lack a lot of receiving options. And yes, they're probably going to be looking for some wide receivers, but if you can't land some of the top wide receivers, why not continue to improve that receiving type of role with a tight end like Gerald Everett? Hayden Hurst, Tommy Tremble, Ian Thomas, these are the guys on the roster, and I look at what Carolina has in cap space. Nothing crazy, about $36 million, but $8 million for a guy like Gerald Everett on a 2-year deal. Maybe the relationships get him that payday, and maybe the need that they have for receiving options in Carolina makes him a priority for them in free agency. And when we look at what is the second best scenario for Gerald Everett, I do think this team also makes some sense. You look at the Cincinnati Bengals. He has ties from his time in Los Angeles to that Los Angeles Sean McVay coaching tree coaching staff in Cincinnati. It could make sense for them here in Cincinnati. And you look at what they have on the depth chart here in Cincinnati, and they have nobody. There is not a single tight end that is going to be coming back under contract in 2024. Irv Smith Jr., Tanner Hudson, Drew Sample, Mitchell Wilcox, all of these guys, tight ends on the Bengals in 2023, are all free agents during this cycle. So yes, I don't think the Irv Smith thing worked out. I don't know if they are going to be re-signing him. They could be looking in a different direction, and they clearly have a need because they have nobody on the roster right now. I see what the Cincinnati Bengals have in cap space. They currently sit 8th overall in the NFL. I look at it, $52 million. They could be spenders in this market if they want to. Now, they are probably going to be a little bit of penny pinchers. They are probably going to be a little bit careful with some money because they do have some guys they need to re-sign, and potentially some guys who are going to be earning and signing big contracts here soon in Jamar Chase. You see that 2-year deal? What if it was a 1-year deal for Gerald Everett? What if that was the market and the Bengals just paid him a 1-year deal to come in and be an extra option for Joe Burrow? I think that could make a lot of sense, especially based on the relationships he has in both of these situations. But I do think that the Carolina Panthers is the most likely scenario. Now, moving on to our final and third tight end of this video, and a little bit of a shorter video. I told you there weren't too many good tight ends in this free agent market, and unfortunately, Spotrac didn't have market values for Noah Fant and Mike Gesicki, who I think were worthy of being talked about. But because we don't have any data, we can't talk about him today. So the last guy we're talking about in this video is going to be Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. Now you see it on the screen. Hunter Henry, he is projected an average annual salary of $7.5 million. They are saying the estimated contract is a 1-year deal, kind of a prove-it deal, similar to the Dalton Schultz deal that we saw him sign last year when he went to the Houston Texans. And when we look at the comparable players to have signed contracts like this, I mentioned Dalton Schultz, but you also see the Mike Gesickis, Logan Thomas, Hayden Hurst, Gerald Everett. These are names that are similar to the Hunter Henry deal that is projected by Spotrac. He's coming off of a 2023 season here where he had 42 catches for 419 yards and 6 touchdowns. And it feels like he scored about 3 or 4 of those touchdowns in the matter of 2 weeks. But that is the season that Hunter Henry put together for us in 2023. I think about the potential landing spots for a guy like Hunter Henry. There's not a lot of places that I love as a true fit. Maybe he just ends up back in New England. But I do think if I was having to make a bet and make a prediction, which is the whole point of this goddamn video, is I would say the Washington Commanders. You look at what they have on the depth chart right now: Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, John Bates. There isn't really anybody leaving this depth chart, but I don't know if the tight end room here in Washington has been good enough for them over the last couple of years. And really the biggest reason why I think Washington could be a potential signing spot for Hunter Henry is right now they are number 1 in the NFL in projected cap space. $82 million is what they have to work with. If anybody is going to be spending money on any type of positions, it's going to be Washington. They got a lot of money, probably burning a hole in their pocket. They haven't been very good lately. They probably want to get pretty good here pretty soon. So I do think they could be potentially signing a guy like Hunter Henry, and I do think he would be an upgrade to what they have in that room right now. But when I look at the second most likely spot for Hunter Henry, this spot does feel a little bit more unique, and it does feel like it might be a little bit harder to make this happen, but it feels like it would be a very good fit for Hunter Henry. And I do think the second best option would be the Los Angeles Rams. And when I look at them right now, I look at the depth chart that they have, and obviously there is a guy in the room right now, Tyler Higbee. There's Hunter Long, Davis Allen. They're losing Bryson Hopkins as a free agent, but that doesn't really matter. But we know that Tyler Higbee tore his ACL in the wild card round. I do think it adds some serious doubt to his availability here in 2024. And this is a guy who's just a little bit older. He's dealt with a couple more injuries, and maybe bringing in a guy like Hunter Henry on a 1-year deal to play while Tyler Higbee is recovering from that ACL tear makes a little bit of sense for the Rams, who do think they are in a window where they can compete for a playoff spot still. They obviously were in the wildcard game, like I said last year. And you put Hunter Henry on this offense with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. I feel like it just makes a lot of sense. You look at their cap space right now, 12th overall in the NFL, $43 million are available to them. They could spend a little bit of money here to add a guy like Hunter Henry and replace Tyler Higbee temporarily while he's recovering. I do think it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think this would be an awesome fit for Hunter Henry. And I do think this makes a ton of sense for the Los Angeles Rams. Now, that is all we have for you guys today. Like I said, a little bit of a shorter video. Unfortunately, we didn't have the data for Noah Fant or Mike Gesicki, so we couldn't talk about them today. But that is going to conclude our free agent prediction series. If you guys missed any of those videos, they are going to be linked in the description down below, so make sure you go check those out. The running backs, the wide receivers especially, those videos are very good. There's lots of talented players in this class in those videos. But yes, with that being said, that is the end of this video. Make sure you hit that like button. It is the best free way to show our channel some support, and it truly does help us out. So make sure you're hitting that like button. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel, and make sure you're hitting the notification bell. That way you never miss a future upload when it does come out. And last but not least, make sure you guys are a member of our Discord. We do have a free Discord. It is linked in the description, where we talk about Dynasty Fantasy Football 24/7, 365. And that is where I have your guys' help to submit for our trade show, which our trade show is happening on Sunday. So go submit your trades for that trade show right now. And I will see you guys on our next video. But until then, peace out.